Welcome, everyone. Sorry about that little hitch. I've got a bit of a problem with my hearing. We do a bit of a check on the tech, and I've realised it's just messed it up. But hopefully you can hear me. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We've got some really cracking guests today. A couple of guests. We've got Charlie Hedges, who has basically created an incredible website, which is a go-to for everyone involved in missing persons, whether you are missing person yourself, whether you're thinking about that you just need to get away from it all and that side of things, but also the families and those people trying to find them. And it's they don't specifically look for the people themselves, but they are the font of all knowledge of where to put people. So you just need to go to these people. So yeah, is the hub is intended as a single point of reference, where links and information can be found about all aspects of missing persons. It's almost it's also aimed at everyone who may be involved or needs help, and includes persons who are missing themselves. It's a signpost. So we're going to look at that in a second. Can't wait, because I think it's just a huge problem, isn't it? If we could go to, let's see what's been happening recently. Dave, unfortunately, isn't with us today. Unfortunately, it's going to be a couple of weeks, at least more, I'm afraid, with that. Dave's wrapped up with his work stuff, and he's unable to help us at the moment. So, but enjoy. We've got other guests next week as well. Let's just go on to. Shall we just go see what's been happening this week? Shall we? I've just put this one on, Richard. You know, I always want to give it a good good chance, but this here, basically, there's people are aware there's various recruitment procedures which involve either you have a degree in the first place, or you do a degree course whilst you're joining the police, which takes a bit longer, and you obtain a policing degree. And there's been lots of complaints, and I spoke to College of Policing on this in the past, and they say, look, sometimes it's just not implemented in the best way possible, that we need to streamline that side of things. And it's basically the process is the content is good, it just needs to be delivered better and more consistency. I'm not entirely convinced at that. And I see now Lancashire has just joined the merry crew of saying all those who were joining under the PCDA, which is in order to achieve a degree, are offered now to join straight in at what we call the IPL dip. It's the original teaching, which College of Policing is saying really is outdated. I think what I'm finding from officers, it's all right if you've got no families and you're not married with 3 young children. If you are, there's a lot that are pulling the ripcord and parachuting out. They can't cope with it. Whereas if you are single, you're probably able to do that. So it's not ideal, and it's a bit of a shame now that there's another one that it looks like is going that way, Lancashire, although they're meant to be sort of fading it out gently. Just see what else has been going on during the week. Yeah, this has got to be good. That's it. Missing Persons Information Hub. So follow that, and you'll hear more about it today. This one here is John. John, you've probably heard about me talking about John Goodman. He's an absolute star. I've known him since I was at school, and he suffers from epilepsy. And he's basically, well, you can see the results of his epilepsy, and this is almost, well, probably weekly. I do tease him because he looks like a bank robber, but he's the nicest guy you could expect to meet. All right, but he actually puts an actual description of what it is. And often he gets accused of, why are you on disability? Because look, you look as though you're fine and you volunteer, so why don't you work? He works incredibly hard as a chair of the Royal British Legion. He's done enormous amounts for Newquay, and he got Queen's Garden Party awarded to him for all his basically selfless acts in order for the community. He even did little mini DIY SOSs. And John is a reminder of me. I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but whenever I'm starting to feel sorry for myself, even just slightly, I think of people like John who just gets through it, who gets through that stress. It's unbelievable, and just gets on with life and keeps on helping people. I mean, I've I usually have a coffee with him most weeks as well, and he's always something stressful going on with the Royal British Legion. It's like running a small business, really. So that was that side of things. We have, I think, Ian, you've just mentioned there. Look, two police officers that have cleared of misconduct after an investigation dating back 7 years. Disgraceful. It's all too common, I'm afraid. IOPC have a lot to answer for. 7 years. They say there was not legislation, but there was new rules, policies in order to make sure things were done within certain time limits. That was clearly before that time, but I don't know why it wasn't. In my experience, it tends to be because there's appeals on appeals and further appeals. Police officers, in the meantime, police officers' careers are on hold. Their lives are ruined. They are just don't know what's going to happen. And if it's a complaint of an assault, then technically they could go to prison. So it's a very worrying time. And they are not even given a second thought of basically about their welfare by the IOPC when they're investigating these things, because they've got to be completely clear to the public is their reasoning. Well, I think the police are human beings as well. So I think that's really why my argument on that. So that's what Ian Adams. Thank you, Ian. You're right. Ian's a good friend of mine. He was just shown on his social media with a big Devonshire ice cream. So, and Noor, who was our guest last time, was trying to start a war between him and me being in Cornwall right now. Kelly's ice cream is considerably superior in Cornwall. Try it. I won't actually put this one on. No, we're not going to talk about cream teas either. Scones, jam, cream. We don't want another fight there. I won't talk about this. I won't show this video because it does show police officer shooting someone at this point there. But it was an amazing, I've got to say, rapid reflex action and accurate shot. And then he's trying to do CPR. Somebody mentioned that there wasn't mouth to mouth. Generally speaking, doing all the first aid and that side of things on the ARVs, you could get quite effective oxygen going in by doing chest compressions. And so that was more so than they thought before. And because of all, obviously, contagious risks and things like that, then it's not necessarily what people will want to do. So it doesn't mean they're not getting oxygen in there. But it's so important when you see someone in the street collapse, and basically they look dead. They lack of oxygen. A lot of people fuss around and go, is they breathing? Or should we call the ambulance first? And then see, you lose 20% of chance of life every 1 minute. So 3 minutes, 60% chance of life gone. So that's how it's rapid is the answer. I did CPR twice. I did one successful, one not. But the first one was because it was quite rapid. So I think other than that, and apart from deeply missing David, I'm just looking through the, but yes, see, it does. Tea. We were arguing about Countess Grey tea, which is this, and Yorkshire tea in my very masculine mug, and my masculine wallpaper, masculine pictures. You see, I'm completely comfortable with my sexuality while staying at my mother's house at the moment. It's good. It could be worse. It could be worse wallpaper, I tell you. Dave as well. This one here, let's bring this one on. It's been an incredible effort by K9 Finn, I say. National Police Chiefs actually brought it up, which was fantastic. Finn's Law came into force on this day 3 years ago. It was June the 8th. Following the implementation of animal welfare service animals. Shout out to Dave. He has gone through hell and back in order to do that. You'd think, being a supporter of animals, that you would have had a pretty much resistant-free time. I've had many conversations with Dave, just with trolls, people who just assume that Finn is being dragged everywhere against his will. I know I've met Finn a fair few times, and anyone who's got their dog, they want to come out with them. And Dave is incredibly careful about. He knows when his dog's getting tired, and he goes in the van or he goes into his room or whatever. And it's just it's just tiresome. And these complaints are always done by people who actually do very little themselves. They don't volunteer for stuff. They don't actually actively get involved with things. They just like to sit back and think, right, how can I sort of instill myself some sort of, as if I'm achieving something positive. I know I'm going to complain about other people doing good work themselves. And so it brings us back to John Goodman with the chair of the Royal British Legion, a completely voluntary job. But you wouldn't believe how many people think it's a highly paid job he's doing. So phenomenal, really. I haven't got the patience for these people, as you may have noticed. Let's go further on. I'm going to try to put my ears in again to see if I can end. Because before I bring the guests on, I just want to make sure that they're actually working there. I think, right. There we go. Okay. I think it's time to actually bring, we'll bring Charlie Hedges and Tanja Conway Grim. We've had Tanja here before. She was talking because she has got about, without any, well, slight exaggeration, she's probably got about 10 degrees, which she's very embarrassed about and says, don't mention all these degrees. They're all in forensics and science and, you know, all those, I'm doing this while she's offline now, so she can't argue, but she's an incredibly intelligent woman. And she was just, we had her on talking about autism, which she was just diagnosed back in 2017. Heavily involved in the missing person side of things, because there's a big subject we're going to talk about. And Charlie Hedges, who's created this website, and ex-police officer. So let's bring them on. There's welcome Tanja, and welcome Charlie.
Hi, Harry.
Okay.
Hi, how are you doing?
Brilliant. Okay, because I can't hear you too much at the moment because of this. So if you can just talk amongst yourselves for a minute, and I will.
I don't have 10 degrees, okay? I do not have 10 degrees. Just to be clear.
What was that, 10 degrees?
I do not have 10 degrees.
Oh, yeah. What, 9, is it? How many have you got? How many have you got?
2 and a bit.
Tell us, while I sort this out, and this is while I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Charlie, you were, a little bird tells me, you were a police officer, a dog handler, just like Dave Wardell. From Finn's Law in Thames Valley. How long did you serve in Thames Valley for? Did you do a fair few years, or?
Yeah, I was 30 years in two halves of 15 years of each. I got bored in the middle and left, but my CV says I had a career break. Depends which way you want to take it, but the pension.
Right.
So, I went back. I was in dogs, traffic, crime investigation, proactive, all sorts of different things. But the turning point for me was 25 years ago when I got to find out just really how bad things were in the world of missing persons and started to agitate for change. Wrote a few reports, then got told, well, my area commander, if you want to make a difference, you have to go to your backside and do something about it. And that's where I've been ever since. So.
That's incredible. And could you just tell me, how did you and Tanja get involved together with this? Where did you, between yourselves, how did you get involved?
We met in Scotland at a conference and then had a train journey back south, either side of a rather drunken Scotsman on the train. And he wasn't one of the conference attendees, he was just another passenger, but added to the entertainment. But we sort of met at that time and shared common interests, and I think that's the right story, isn't it? Or have you got a different one, Tanja?
No, I totally agree with your version.
Excellent. So when we've got common interests and passion for the subject, we sort of root each other out and tend to sort of recognise that working together is a good thing.
You both very much do it. So how did it come across? So there's the Missing Persons Information Hub from everyone on the side. This is the website. And can you just explain in a nutshell? So how long has it taken to get it to this point? Because it's only just come online last month. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. It's been a little while in development. It was something that I thought about probably about this time of that conference when I met with Tanja, and we were going to these conferences and hearing about all sorts of research that's going on. You could practice, but how the hell do we find it? And I've been around the block a few times around missing. I still found it difficult to nail down the things I was looking for, and started to think about a centre of expertise or a hub where we could bring everything together. So that was, it's been going on a few years, and these things take a while to develop, and I needed to make sure I got the support of everybody else on the arena, from MPCC to charities like Missing People, to all the other key people, and that takes a little while to steer them round to your way of thinking, and then we all came together and created it over a period of about 9 to 12 months, I guess, before we actually launched it. And as you said in the introduction, the idea is to try and find a central hub. We don't provide help and support, but it's a central place where people can go to find what they need in relation to the arena of missing, as we know, is incredibly complex.
Yes, exactly. And Tanja, have you been in from the beginning, from that drunken Scotsman on the train to at this point? Where's your, because you've heavily been involved with missing persons before, haven't you? And yes, if you could sort of answer that one, because then I've got a very interesting link where you became interested in missing persons as well for personal reasons.
Yeah, it was met Charlie at that conference about missing people and adults and missing children. And we kept in touch because Charlie was really passionate and he wanted to create this center of excellence. So it's gone through various guises over the years and different names. And there was a very solid group of people who were involved right from the beginning. And everyone has just really worked really well together over the last few years to bring it all together.
That's right, because there were people like I know a father called Van Nettles, wasn't there, whose son Damien is missing from 1996, and I know he's credited on the website as well for I presume for Harry,
Foul Nettles.
Okay, sorry, my mistake there. So and I was looking at missing since 1996. How on earth does someone where I mean, I dealt with things which were very final. I dealt with road death. I dealt with tragedy, with people losing their sons and daughters. But there was some sort of closure at the end of it. There was, because they understood why it had happened, how it had happened. Somebody was going to court if they were a result as responsible for it. But ultimately, there was some sort of closure. And yet with a missing person, there isn't that always, is there? They don't always come back. They're not even found often.
Yeah, it's called ambiguous loss. So it's the loss where there isn't a resolution. You don't know what's happened.
Yeah, I see. I just can't see how, yes, Charlie, how people cope with that.
Yeah, it is incredibly difficult. And Val is a really good example of that. When Damien went missing from the Isle of Wight, so 26 years, it was about the same time he went missing that I started to get involved. And Val was also a key player in this because I had quite a lot of involvement with her and looking at the case and supporting her need to try and get answers. And that was also part of the genesis for the information hub. And it was a promise I made to her a long time ago that I wanted to try and make things better for people in her situation. So that, I mean, particularly for families, when you're new to this situation, you lose someone. Where do you go for help and information? What do you need to do? And so, this is part of it. And stage 2 is to actually write a more detailed booklet for families so that they can understand the police speak, the police procedures, the external procedures, what happens with what's a coroner's court all about, and just simply how do they manage the affairs of that missing person when they're absent? Because again, that's the other issue that arises from it. I mean, if you've got someone who's been declared dead, you can, take probate, you can take over their affairs. Yeah. When someone's missing, it's very, very much left up in the air, and it's very difficult, and deaths keep on rising, and it's just incredibly complex.
I just can't even comprehend it. And somebody is not going to be in the right state of mind in order to go, right, okay, let's see what we can do here. Right, we've called the police and we've done this, but they're not in that state of mind. So you're your charity, your website here as well, is somewhere they could go straight away for everything, and you'll be able to guide them into various directions as to what they can do depending on their loss, because there's also loss, right, where they lose someone's lost family members. I believe where the Salvation Army, I saw on the website there, they get involved because the police don't. What's the circumstances around that?
Well, the police are involved in missing persons, and one of the things that I've worked on over the years is about risk triage, understanding the risk when someone has gone missing and the urgency of being able to deal with them stacked against other things. There are cases where the average person would think that someone is missing, whereas actually it's a lost contact case, and that's where some of these other organisations can come into play, and they can do a really valuable, and they're really good at finding people who have lost contact, but they're not true missing persons as we would think of them in policing terms.
So what causes someone, Tanja, can you tell what causes someone, for example, because you went missing initially, didn't you, in a long time ago?
Yeah, I was 1.5, so it's a very, very long time.
1.5, goodness. Okay.
Yeah. That was the first time that it was reported to the police, but my mother's diary showed that I went missing before that. Yeah, and I was able to get quite far at times as well. But normally I would escape the garden, even though my mother tried very hard to make it Tanja-proof, which proved to be impossible. And I would escape and go and hide. And later on, I'd go missing. And when I was 15, I ran away and left home for good. So.
Incredible. And again, since as well. And it was only 2017 that you realised that you were diagnosed with autism, and you gave us a fascinating insight into that in the last, and people couldn't find that if you search Frontline Chat, Tanja. That will get you there anyway. Because there was various other times you just think you just want to go off and disappear for a bit. Is that right?
It's when the world gets too overwhelming, when everything... Most people who are autistic have sensitivities around light and sound, and being too much around people is really exhausting. And so when it gets too much, you just try and go away to a place where it's quiet and where you can just kind of decompress.
And when you're in those circumstances, do you sort of feel, oh, they must be worried about me, I must let them know that I'm okay? Or
no, not at all. No, it's not. Normally, I went missing when I was 12 as well, and that was just a misunderstanding. We were on holiday. I wandered off into a beautiful wildflower meadow in Switzerland and saw lovely butterflies and flowers and calves, and followed the path. Ended up on top of the mountain above the tree line. Eventually made my way down again. I didn't think I was gone for very long and there was a problem, but there was a massive police search going on down in the valley because Tanja disappeared. I'd just gone for a walk, so...
Who, me?
Yeah, exactly. My father was not amused.
No, have there been specific difficulties with setting this up? Has there been bureaucracy? Have you had some resistance? Or has it gone, it's just a matter of getting the right people together and setting this charity up, this website up? Has there been anything specifically difficult that you've had to get through?
I think the key thing was just working through with the right partners to make sure that my ideas came out in a clear and cogent form that would actually stand up and people could use. So there was a lot of consultation. The University of Liverpool did an insight study for us, which gave us some really useful information about how it should be shown and what have you. And also with the families group at Missing People, the charity, they were incredibly helpful in unpicking some of the things and advising us as to how it should look. And we got very early stages. We got good support from MPCC, the Missing Persons League. They really liked the idea. Thrilled to bits someone was doing it at no cost or in their own time, and it's a voluntary effort. And people recognised that there was a space that needed to be filled. So it wasn't difficult from that point of view, but I've never built a website before. I had a vision, but visions have to be put into a format that works for everybody. So that was the challenge of getting that right.
And what about, because it's very difficult when you're dealing with next of kin or that side of things. What about siblings? Because it must be quite stressful for them. And especially as we all know, families are quite, can be broken up. Some families aren't speaking to the other half, and that's so on and so forth. And you could even have, I guess, the girlfriend or the boyfriend who's the relative who doesn't specifically come as the next of kin. Is there any help for them at all?
There is. It's something I would probably like to develop a bit more on the website. But you're absolutely right. It is something that's very relevant. We've got a link to a social media site that's run by a relative of Val's who deals with that sort of area, and you can find that on the website. But I think there's scope to develop that more. I mean, the website is an organic thing. It will grow and continue. So as we get feedback and we get new ideas, we want to make it better and more inclusive. But yes, it's covered. Yeah. We could do more.
Because you certainly know how complicated some lives can be. Because I mean, we've had people who've been involved in serious collisions. They're in hospital, and not only the wife turns up, but the girlfriend turns up as well, and neither knew about the other. Yeah. and each are claiming to be the next of kin, so to speak. Right. So it can be a very difficult situation. And that's where obviously family liaison officers are imperative, and we, as the penny drops, it's quite stressful for all. So when we're in this, we're far more diverse nowadays as well. So there's families with partners from abroad. Is there, because I noticed there was something on the website about the abduction side of things, the child abductions, where children are taken off, usually by the father. Am I right in that? Where they then go off to another country, and that child is incredibly stressful for the mother who's left behind. But those are the circumstances I've heard. Is that getting more and more, do you think?
I don't think it's necessarily. It's not always the father. Often it can be the mother. On parent decides they have a prior claim. I can't quote the statistics of the balance between the two offhand, but certainly it is prevalent on both sides. I think it takes us to one of my things I've always spoken about in relation to missing is saying that no one goes missing without a reason, and secondly, missing is an indicator, and it's enabled us to identify child sexual, all the CSE that came from missing, working with NGOs and through missing behaviour. County lines again was something. I was working at CEOP, we identified as being something related to missing. The same with abduction and what have you. There's so many facets to it. So, and the important thing is to not to just dismiss it as just another misper. It happens too often. We need to look at it, understand why they've gone missing, and then you start to see some of the family issues that might be behind it. Maybe they're running away from abuse at home, or it might be that they're involved in all sorts of other issues around abduction, and a whole range of other criminal and social situations that need to be looked at.
Now that's something I haven't really thought of. Is because you think, great, we found them, end of problem, and then we have a nice little chat, and everyone feels. Tanya's shaking your head, so because exactly. I mean, have we got the processes? Because I was just so frustrated in the police in my last few years. Speaking to a young girl who was on the railway line, she come back and she says, well, I'm on a waiting list of 18 months. I can't wait 18 months. Yeah. What do I do? And I'm on the bridge talking to someone, the guy who did jump. And I was getting to the point where I was thinking, I don't have any answers right now, because you just think he's tried to get mental health support and they've released him again. He says, I don't want to be released. I want to be helped. It's so it's devastating. Do you think there's the safeguarding things coming there, or are we relying more and more on charities, I guess, really?
Well, I think that there's a role for the police to understand what's going on and to identify if there are any further investigations or other actions they should take and make the necessary referrals. And I know from my experience how frustrating it can be when you desperately know that someone needs a referral and those resources aren't available. Charities can step in and help. It's very much knowing where everyone is, and again that's sort of linking into the website and trying to identify some of those links and connections to show what needs to be done. and trying to make sure that we get the response right. I remember a case when I was working, saw a case where a 13-year-old girl had been missing for several days, and they'd sent a police officer to go and speak to her to do a return home interview. And it was a busy Friday night, and the duty inspector said, no, we're far too busy for that. And that no one went to see her. And it was only 2 days later, she was able to tell her mum that she'd been abducted and raped and held prisoner for 2 days. And no one had picked up on that because, so it's so easy to do these things.
It is. I mean, Tanja, do you think? I mean, I don't want to be so depressing with it all because I know the cutbacks with the police, but it wasn't that. It was the civilians, the police officers. It was also the fact that it's cutbacks with all the other agencies. So the police were the stopgap, filling in where there were shortfalls, and so therefore the quality of the service got less and less and less. And you've got long-term issues like this. Do you think there's an answer here, Tanja? Is when we find people?
I wish. Well, I think one, you have to not just look at prevention, which of course is amazing if you can do that to prevent somebody from going missing or going repeat missing, but also really think about making it easy for them to return. Because when I ran away or when I went missing and I'd come back, I'd be really blamed and I'd be resented and I would be punished for having gone.
Yeah.
That doesn't really help. If somebody, like Charlie says, somebody doesn't go missing for fun, well, apart from me on my walk in Switzerland, but that was a rare exception, all right? These things happen, misunderstandings. But on the whole, people go missing for very serious reasons that really, really matter. So if they go missing and they're found by the police and taken back to exactly the same situation, you may be putting them in danger. So it's about making that return easy and really debriefing what's happening and thinking as well how you talk to somebody, because somebody might just like that 13-year-old girl. It may take days, weeks, or even years to talk about what actually happened. Part of the problem is the police is used as a stopgap service. They're not the social workers, and that is a bit of an issue.
Absolutely. I mean, and just one other thing coming out of that is, if the person who's running away is because they're subject to domestic violence or their child that's being physically or sexually abused in the home, when they've run away, they're actually safer than when they're at home. So,
yes.
We've seen so many cases where they've been picked up by the police and chucked back and said, "Get back in the home and don't run away again." What do I do? I don't think for a minute that I don't have sympathy with the position with the police, because I was there for 30 years and I absolutely understand the frustrations and the difficulties of the lack of resources, being expected to solve all the problems which the police can't, and unreasonable reports of someone who's missing, and we need to make that evaluation and make a proper risk triage of it.
Yeah, I think there's probably some situations out there that people just can't contemplate and didn't believe that were happening. I mean, there's people now who've written. I read a book recently, which is coming out soon, and he basically was in care, and not only was as a 9-year-old, he was prostituted out, and being taken by the older kids out of the home to be pimped out. Unbelievable. And I was thinking, but I was this age when that was happening, and I just thought people were just being mischievous by running away from care homes, and they should be grateful, I mean, how far was I wrong with that, But that was the media impression to all out there, and who knows how many times we say what happens behind closed doors, of course. Is that why there's a forum on there as well? Isn't there a discussion forum? And so who can get involved with that in that forum?
It's not really, it's not intended as a discussion forum. It's more about if you've got things you can contribute, because what is really important, I tried to make clear on the website, it's not there as a 24/7 response. It is purely a hub that connects people together. And if you have we've had a few things coming back from that with people police officers who want to get involved and help in their local area, people from other organisations who've got some good ideas and what have you. So it's really about that, about contributing ideas to the hub, but please, it can't be used as a sort of an immediate response. You're going to the cute factor now, aren't you?
Yeah, sorry, he's just been lying in the sun all day. Yeah, he's
Oh, Arthur, he's so cute.
I've got him for a fortnight, and then I have to give him back for a fortnight. So I've thought of all things by saying that he's gone missing, but I thought I'd better not. I think I'll be found out. I mean, I can see why it'd be so to having that one place to go to is superb. So who actually helps with missing persons abroad, for example? How that seems to be, they're gone. Is it, who actually physically gets involved with that? Is it the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and all that? Is that, and they get involved, and is there sort of good procedures for that, or is it fault? Has it got major faults like most places?
It's a complex area. They have jurisdiction of certain cases. So if someone's missing abroad, they will facilitate where they can, though it's limited what they can actually do. There are some charities out there who will also work in that area and be really, really useful. Again, you can find those information about those on the website. So, if you're a police officer and you're dealing with a case where you've got those international connections, you can have a look and see who to go to and where you can get that help and support. So if someone is missing abroad, it gets into an abduction situation, then it gets really complicated because it depends on whether the country they've gone to is part of the Hague Convention or whether it's part of Brussels. I mean, it just gets incredibly complicated.
Sure.
And again, there are organisations out there who can give you first-class advice on what to do. And the critical thing with people who are abducted abroad is to be able to respond quickly, because once they've gone, it's very difficult to bring them back. We do get involved in cases that aren't necessarily our jurisdiction. I mean, the Cannes case is a good example, purely out of country incident, but the UK is very good at getting involved in supporting the families and what have you.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear. Absolutely good to hear. Tanja, you're looking at what you do. You do workshops on autism, neurodiversity, suicide prevention, and missing people. This all seems to be where you are sort of, why do you think, is it because of your history, solely because of your history of where you've been missing, because you didn't know you had autism for some time, but all those subjects, you've done the police search advisors course as well. Yeah. You've done what was it? The Lowland Rescue training.
Yeah.
All these are trying to help people who are in dire straits, basically, isn't it? The suicide prevention, they've gone missing and that side of things. So it's obviously a subject you're very passionate about. How is it because of your past, do you think, or do you think the autism helped you in any way because of your life experiences?
I think it has helped me in the sense that I do understand, and some of the times that I was missing, I wouldn't have known I was missing. I might have followed an interest, like when I went off in Switzerland, which is quite common for autistic people. They can go missing just because they see maybe a program on TV about a nice place and think, oh, that looks nice. And then up sticks and go and not tell anyone, at which point, of course, they are missing, even though there's nothing else going on. A lot of people can really struggle around whilst maybe waiting for a diagnosis for autism, or after they've been diagnosed as autistic, that it can be really hard to make sense of your life. So having that lived experience as well as professional experience, I hope to help with bringing some understanding, really, and also getting this message home about make it easy for the person to come back if it is safe to do so, and asking the right questions and giving that person space and the right kind of questions to allow them.
That's the crucial thing. And because I remember discussing with you last time when I stopped someone who was in a really strange place on the road. You wouldn't normally have walked there. It was an off slip. It was a very tight bend, and they were in a dangerous place, but they weren't showing any concerns about where they were. So I got the police car and the blue lights to warn people so that they go around us. And he quite rudely says, "Can you turn those lights off?" And it was only because I sort of thought, I don't think there's any intent here to be an arse, but he was very rude. And then I said, "Why do you want the lights off?" "Oh, they're really affecting me. I can't concentrate." And I thought, okay.
But Harry, I have to challenge you here. Was he rude? Yeah. Was he being direct?
Well, now there you go, because I thought it sounded rude, because that's my initial reaction was, well, I don't speak like that, so why isn't he speaking like that? And that side of things. So then it clicked, and I thought, I tell you what, I'll stick the rear lights on, so then we don't need them at the front anyway. And he was like, yeah. And then he was absolutely fine. So then I realized, and I can't remember if he explained it was autism or something. And then I've since learned about these with flashing lights and things like this that can do it. And it's learning about these sorts of information. You've sort of, one of your degrees, I'm sort of rubbing it into you, was forensic investigation, no body homicides as well. Again, quite linked it can be to missing persons. So can you tell us anything, just summarize your degree into one paragraph. What's that all about?
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate that.
I'll go off and get a cup of tea.
I'll take my revenge.
Go on.
I think there were several reasons. One, somebody tried to kill me once when I was missing, and I survived because people intervened, and I probably survived by a few seconds. That was the difference. It was very close. So that made me very aware of murder and what people and harm. Then a friend of mine went missing abroad, and he was actually, in fact, found murdered eventually. And so that was something that was very close to me. And I found the sadness of a nobody homicide. I just found it so sad that both for the families, but also for the victim. And I always thought that could have been me. That could have been me on one of my journeys, and I'm hitchhiking across countries. It could have gone wrong. And how do you understand how people may think when they are hiding a body or getting rid of a body? They might not necessarily hide it. So I was really intrigued by that. And it was part of self-discovery as well, of why did I go missing? What was going on? Doing all that training, doing that research really helped me to understand myself and the subject a bit better.
And so, go on, Charlie.
So there's a couple of really, really interesting things come out from that. Well, one going back to autism and other things like that. I think understanding from an official side is really important. And I look back now and think about some of the things I did when I was serving, and it makes me wince a bit. I really didn't understand what was driving that person, and also having a stepson who is sort of mildly autistic and has various processing issues, but he's hugely successful. But really understanding that, and the other bit about the international was when I was working at CEOP and the NCA, where I was very often involved in international cases, and being able to, there's Interpol and Europol are great, but it's a process which you have to follow. And so I always had a vision that how could we connect European and international police officers together so you could phone a friend. And by working through Amber Alert Europe, a European charity, we started to build that network, and that's now recognised. The Police Expert Network Missing People is part of Europol. It's officially recognised by the EU. First time an NGO has achieved that status. But we bring all police officers together across Europe so they can talk about cases, and we have conferences, and they, police officers, what they want to talk about their cases, and sometimes they solve them by chatting to someone from another country. So it's building those networks is about connectivity and understanding the nature of what we're dealing with.
So bringing it right back to home, you'll have known, Charlie, when you get a shout that there's probably an elderly lady or an elderly man with dementia has just gone missing from the care home or from their home. And usually it's winter, usually it's 11 o'clock at night, and usually they're dressed in a little nightie or something. So you're against the clock. And I mean, how often do you think how many do you think you attended like that? Because I've personally witnessed so many dog handlers, when you're a dog handler, literally save lives and then move on and do another job. Absolutely. They're incredible, the dogs are, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we used to get, when I was dog handling, we used to get involved in those sort of cases, and then more latterly, when I was as a search manager, being asked to look for those cases and just trying to find them as quickly as can. But sadly, also in some that we didn't find them in the ditch until several days later when it was too late. But again, getting that response right and getting out there quickly.
That's right, because sometimes they can be literally under a bush because they're getting cold, and so they just want to go and hide in something and conserve heat, and so they go out of sight.
Absolutely.
And that's why unfortunately the dog handlers, they were halved, which meant with all the cutbacks, and it was so naively cut them by 50%, because you'll know yourself, Charlie, that if you have half the dogs, it doesn't mean you get half the jobs detected. It means you get far fewer jobs detected, because you've got to now travel the other side of the force in order to attend the job, by which time it's too late, isn't it?
But let's not forget, there are also some really good NGOs out there who can help within lowland rescue and mountain rescue. I've just finished another project, Search Dog Heroes, where we were training dogs that would work on the specific scent of an individual, very particularly for people with dementia, old people who go on missing with vulnerabilities. Generally, police dogs work on the generic scent of a human being. These we were trained to work on the specific scent of an individual. And they would track through a railway station where 200 people have just got off the train and still follow that specific scent to find someone. Absolutely amazing. And that's all done through a voluntary effort. Lowland Rescue, so mountain rescue do some as well. And they can be brought in to support the police and to supplement those reduced numbers that you talk about.
And NGOs, what are they?
Non-governmental organisations, charities. So they're they're the ones who are doing it for the love of it rather than the cash.
Fantastic. And we had in Devon and Cornwall, we had 2 bloodhounds, and they were called something like Daphne and Agnes or something. And it was seriously. But unfortunately they only live 8 years or something. So the actual, by the time for the training, and I remember, like you were saying, Charlie, because German Shepherds, yes, it's a track, and they, with the experience, they can tell as another track crosses, well, this is the same strength as that, so I'm going to carry on. I'm not going to just turn right angles. And so it's not just a question of following a track, but they can't sniff a handkerchief and go find the owner, which is where the bloodhounds could, and various other breeds. But unfortunately, just found they wasn't economical or practical, I think, because of the length of time. And I think it was as well because they had 2 for a huge force area. You still got that problem where you want them there now, whereas it would travel 3 hours to get from one side of the force to another here. It even takes the helicopter an hour, So that, I think, maybe a smaller force like Manchester, it's just a metropolis, isn't it? You're looking after a dog at the moment, aren't you? Well, with a certain skill.
Yeah. I've got Reggie. One of my other things I do, partly as a volunteer and partly as a consultant, is working for medical detection dogs. I've been working with them as a consultant on their project to develop dogs that can detect COVID, and Reggie is one of our dogs. We've been working on it throughout the pandemic, and they can detect it. It's incredibly difficult. You could think it's hard training a dog to find drugs, firearms, or a person. A virus is just so much more complicated because you can't isolate the odor very easily. It changes constantly. You've seen all the different variants. Then you have vaccinations coming in. It's been a really interesting and challenging project. But we have got dogs that we can detect COVID, but we're also trying to service the science to make sure we can have the proof as to what works and what doesn't work. And although we seem to be coming towards the end of COVID, the indications are it's on the rise again at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen in the winter, so we will be there for that. But also it's a proof of concept for the next virus that comes along, so we know that we can use dogs and they can be out there to detect these odours. And we know with Reggie, he is the person who was looking after him before I was. she contracted COVID, and he knew she had COVID before she tested positive. And then
so where would you use these dogs? For an individual person, or for busy areas, or crowds, or where would they be used?
The initial idea was at sort of airports, seaports, and so on. But we've also been contracted to work for various other companies where they have a lot of people, film companies particularly, quite interested in trying to keep a COVID-free environment.
Right.
And different sort of environments like that. So it's really about, the dog will detect with someone in a line the same way as drugs and explosives dogs work at airports. They can work along the line and they will indicate the person who is of interest.
Yeah. I used to trick. I had a white Parsons Jack Russell, and when I was doing Duke of Edinburgh Award, the kids would sit down and have their lunch in the middle of Dartmoor, and they'd say, "You're a policeman, aren't you?" And I was there. Yeah, that's right. And is he a police dog? I said, "Yeah." What's he do? Really? What's he do? He's a drugs dog. Really? Yeah. If he just sits down next to you, he's a passive dog. Then he can smell cannabis, because they were the sort of age where they would have been experimenting a little bit, maybe. And they were. You see some of the faces, just waiting for him to sit down next to him. Now, Charlie's given the case for dogs, Tanja. You are a cat lover, and your cat's causing you an awful lot of trouble because you're trying to find another home, and you're saying
not for the cat, but for all of us, right? Not just the cat.
Yeah, not for the cat.
I'm not trying to rehome my cat. He's very much part of our family.
That's true.
Yeah, we are discovering that most people do not like landlords don't want cats in their house. So it's all sorts of weird things, like it's normally blanket, no pets, and you say, but it's a cat. He's asleep most of the time. He's insured. He comes with references, and the few properties you can find. From the fit, but the few properties that allow them charge the cat rent up to. It's a good thing you're sitting down, £150 per calendar month.
Great.
You are joking. So they're basically saying we don't want. My goodness. Well, one question that did come back actually before is, how is it funded? Ian was asking, how is your charity funded?
Well, the website.
Yes, the website. Sorry, yeah.
It's all down to me, really. There isn't any funding at the moment. I mean, we're looking to see in the future if we can link up, because the other part of developing this centre of expertise idea I had was about cold cases. And a good friend of mine from down your way, Dave Grimstead, has set up Locate International, and I'm the chair of their charity trustees, and that's about cold case reviews and what have you. So there might be some affinity there, or we maybe will look elsewhere. But at the moment, it's a project of devotion in my pocket at the moment. But
and as I was just referring to John Goodman, who's my very good friend with the epilepsy and all the work he does, you're just proven the case again, is that there's people that are completely, I bow to you, completely selfless in what you do. It must be incredibly rewarding, and I'm no doubt you do. That's what it is when you get something that is helping other people who are in dire straits like that. So thank you so much for that. Somebody actually mentioned, and I can talk about John because he's very public about it, his epilepsy and things. But somebody mentioned there are dogs, like you were saying, Charlie, about that dog that detected medical conditions. Is there one for epilepsy and that side of things?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, medical detection dogs have assistance dogs where they live with the person. They can detect. That's how Claire, who found it, she didn't know she had cancer until her dog told her, and then she started to look into it, and they can detect cancer. There are lots of different things, but then there's also the detection side where we can detect them independently as well. So there are two sides to it: assistance and there's pure detection.
That's phenomenal. So, and it's as usually the case when you're a police dog handler, it doesn't usually end there. You've carried on various.
Yeah. I mean, the policing has been amazing, really. I started doing that, and it's taken me all over the place, doing lots and lots of different things. And I think what policing teaches you is to think, I can sort that problem out. And I keep on saying that. I'm supposed to be retired, but I think, I can have a go at that. And
you know what?
Directions.
It's very true. I mean, because I found that cops it's like when my mum came out of hospital, she's got dementia, and there was no care. I came down to help my sister, and I just shotgunned everything to show, as to what can we have? Can we get anything from you? Can we get anything from you? I literally covered everything. And it's like, well, usually it's just problem solving, isn't it? And finding it, hopefully. And basically, I soon learned, everything came back and they were like, well, this is what you could have had if the care system wasn't in such dire straits. So at least I knew, right, we're on our own here. Let's go. We need to find someone to help us a little bit. And luckily, Mum's really sort of settled down. Is so much better. But it is that problem solving. And I can see...
If it helps, and someone in our audience is going to that difficult case where they've got the family, maybe MPIH, the website is somewhere they can be referred to. Keep it in your head, and if they're desperate and they're looking for some help and support and some explanation, maybe it can be provided through the website. So just bear that in mind and offer that. And that's where I wanted to be.
Brilliant. Okay. So that everyone knows, Missing Persons Information Hub. All right. So they don't do anything specifically to help people there, apart from the main thing is when somebody's thrown into this situation, or they have been in the situation for a while, this is the website that is the information, the signpost. This is the only one they need to go to, because it will take them then to the various other places.
Absolutely.
Need to report someone. Go on.
Yeah. And it's for police officers and anyone else in an official capacity who needs that bit of extra.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's also for academics who want to do research, and if they're looking for something else, we can always need more researchers for families about missing people. It's for anyone who's touched by the issue of missing. Go and have a look, and there might just be something that helps you. And if it's not there, let me know, and we'll see if we can put it on there.
And there you go. Struggling to cope and need help? Shout 85258. It's free, confidential, 24/7 text message. This is just an example of where you can go. Support service for anyone who's struggling to cope. They're there for people. I think there are people out there who are willing to help, and you just assume that it's all. We live in a world where, well, if you haven't got the password and you haven't got this, we're not able to help. Goodbye. I mean, I literally, my phone, the main line here is atrocious. There's a fault with it. It's like, and because my mobile phone here, we're on the edge of a Cornish cliff. There's no reception. And so I literally have to go outside, stand on a wall and hold my left leg out, sort of thing. And then I get some, but that's no good when I need the doctor who's going to call us. And I expected a standard reply from EE, and the nicest guy you'd expect. I think most people have got a relative who's got dementia or some sort of thing like that, but it was quite amusing when they said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to ask your mum some security questions." I'm like, "Well, good luck with that one." So we got there in the end. And it was really helpful. But guys, it's been fantastic. Where are you going to go from here now, Tanja? What are you going to be doing now? Where do you see yourself in next couple of years?
But at the moment, I'm more of the same. I'm doing developing a lot of training, and I'm also a specialist coach supporting neurodiverse people in the workplace, and I absolutely love that. So having a lot of fun with that. And a lot of police officers as well, by the way. A lot of
I know you've been helping a lot of police with you're well in demand, aren't you? So what did you say, neurodiverse? Mm-hmm. So explain that. Summarize that.
Look, what does it consist of? 30 seconds. Things like autism, ADHD, OCD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, loads of different conditions. So really, people should get hold of you, because I love that practical way you put things across, and it was just fascinating that which is on YouTube at the moment on the site, Frontline Chat, with your previous one, Tanja, Frontline Chat, and you will Tanja with a J, and then you will find it. Harry.
Brilliant. Charlie, what are you up to, my friend? Are you saving the world? Because it seems to be you're doing enough already.
Well, still want to look at how else we can develop the website. I want it to be everywhere, so that that's the next part of the project, is seeing how we can get that on people's websites, so that if someone goes missing, if something, they need that help, how they can access it, and also developing the families booklet, so there's better understanding for families about what's going on.
Thank you very much. And a typical comment there. Thank you, Charlie. Ian, is a great hour. Thanks, everyone, and great work, Charlie and Tanya. And there's Julia. Thank you, Julia. Brilliant, really interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. So this will be on YouTube. It will be on the Twitter, Facebook, and we'll put it on the audio as well. So can people look at it on things like Spotify and things like that.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been emotional. Thank you very much indeed. I can't remember who we've got.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. If you just stick around just afterwards for just a couple of minutes. But otherwise, thank you everyone for turning up, and it's been great to see you, and see you next week. Cheers now.